Hi, you're watching AniVerse English. Imagine if suddenly your city froze, the temperature dropped by 80 degrees Celsius, and over 90% of the world's population died. After weeks of freezing, those who survived in their homes had their water and electricity cut off, with nothing to eat and no way to stay warm. Everyone starves. Our protagonist is the only one who is prepared for the end of the world and lives comfortably. He can provide a little food for those who can afford his steep price. But not everything started well. The truth is, in the year 2050, a star explosion caused Earth to enter an ice age. Zhang Yi worked at a Walmart warehouse and managed to stockpile a lot of food. In the apocalypse, the girl he liked broke into his house with a group of neighbors and stole all his food. She admitted she tricked him into opening the door. On his deathbed, Zhang Yi swore that if he could find her in hell, he would get his revenge. For some reason, he returned 3 months back in time before everything happened. Surprised, he swears not to be a sucker for the girl anymore, to take revenge on those who deserve it, and to enjoy seeing his neighbors suffer. With 3 months left until the extreme cold arrives, his priority is to stockpile everything he needs before the end of the world and build a safe house. As he ponders how to start his plan, a bright light flashes before his eyes. Instead of blindness, he discovers he can send things to a different dimension, like a game inventory. His idea is to accumulate an entire supermarket of food, so he never has to worry about food and drink for years. Thinking about all the good food he won't be able to eat in 3 months, Zhang Yi goes to a luxury restaurant to stuff himself, spending 50,000 Korean won and putting it all on his credit card. Because in 3 months, all his problems will be over. The girl Fong Yuqing, whom he had been in love with for years and never got anywhere with, and who betrayed him in his past life, along with her friend, sees that he went to a luxury restaurant. Her friend says she's lucky because this loser does everything for her and must be rich now. Fong Yuqing in his last life pretended to be innocent and virginal and, in the end, stole everything Zhang Yi had, even his arm. Right now, Zhang Yi wants to kill that. Right there. But that would land him in jail. He has to wait until the end of the world to do something. Zhang Yi flashes his bank card and asks, "Do you want to go shopping at the supermarket?" He uses them both to carry everything and shows that he now has money, and they accept happily, hoping to make some profit. They ask why so much food and the protagonist says, "You never know when an apocalypse might happen. It's good to be prepared." The two opportunists complain that he's not carrying anything and that they're doing him a big favor now. Zhang Yi owes them a luxurious dinner like the one he had, and he laughs coldly inside, looking forward to the time when it's his turn to treat them very well. At the market exit, his Aunt Lin with her grandson says, "You can't eat all of that alone. Give some to your aunt." After saying this, the 5-year-old grandson steals his shopping cart. Zhang Yi takes it back and says, "Sorry, I'll eat it all by myself." The child starts throwing a tantrum, cursing at Zhang Yi. "I'll punch your teeth out if you keep this up." The kid starts crying immediately. Aunt Lin asks what he's doing, an adult fighting with a child, and says she'll buy the chocolate, transferring the money later. He shows his QR code and says, "Not later, now. Pass it over now, or go to the market to buy it." He leaves, leaving Aunt Lin angry. Arriving home, Fong Yuqing winked at him, and the two told him not to forget about them. Zhang Yi slammed the door in their faces. After sending the two away, he put all the purchased food in the storage space to see if it spoils over time. He still has a lot to do, building an impenetrable fortress with heating devices and medical supplies. It would also be great if he could get some weapons. With 3 months left until the Ice Age, he needs to sell everything he has as quickly as possible and get more. The next day, Zhang Yi checked the freshness of the food in the storage space and discovered that living creatures could not be stored, but the food remained as fresh as when he stored it. Knowing this, Zhang Yi picked up his phone and contacted the best local restaurant, ordering 500 full meals for delivery. He explained that he would be hosting a 3-day, 3-night feast and needed so much food. His next step was to find his property deed and go to the bank to mortgage his apartment. Considering that after the apocalypse money would become worthless paper, Zhang Yi decided to take out a loan with his apartment as collateral. In 3 months, he would make the payment for this loan. The manager warned that the interest rate would be a bit high, but upon hearing this, Zhang Yi rubbed his hands together, indicating that it didn't matter if the interest rates were high. He got 9 million and would pay 30 million in 3 months or lose his house and car. Next, he went to the best security company. A business manager approached and asked if he needed help. Zhang Yi shared his idea of building a safe house for the apocalypse. The business manager presented various plans for the protagonist to choose from, but he was not satisfied with the options. He declared that the house should be reinforced with aviation materials, the balcony should use bulletproof glass, and it should include an air filtration system and a 360-degree blind spot-free monitoring system. The front door should be made of the same material as bank vault doors. Additionally, he asked the manager to find a way to obtain some weapons. The business manager was surprised by these renovations and the need for weapons. He could get everything except the weapons. Zhang Yi concluded that this would turn the house into a fortress. The final plan cost 8 million, and after paying the deposit, he asked them to start the work immediately. Next, he needed to obtain some weapons for self-defense. He contacted the owner of a hunting club and managed to get some crossbows as weapons. As soon as he returned home, the 500 full meals he had ordered also arrived on several trucks. This caught the attention of many people in the neighborhood, as they were delivery trucks from a 5-star hotel, which would cost at least 1 million or so. After some time, Zhang Yi's house was filled. Wasting no time, he put everything into the storage space, ensuring he wouldn't need to worry about food for years. The next day, the security company workers arrived to start building the safe house. This scene attracted the attention of many neighbors who mocked Zhang Yi, asking if he had taken the wrong medication. However, he didn't care because he believed that when the end came, they would find out who was the joke. Next, Zhang Yi went to the manager of the company where he works and bought a portion of the medicine supplies, offering double the market price to have priority and buy everything, even what was already sold to other companies. He transported these items home little by little. His recent stockpiling activities also caught the attention of Feng Yuqing, who asked if something was about to happen, mentioning that she had been thinking a lot about him recently. The protagonist didn't want to respond to Feng Yuqing's fake concern, leaving her angry. Zhang Yi, who used to do everything she asked, suddenly started ignoring her. His best friend simply laughed at the situation, stating that if something big were happening, the country would definitely notify everyone. All she had to do was win over Zhang Yi so they could benefit. After weeks, Zhang Yi's safe house was successfully built. The company also installed surveillance systems on every floor of the building, and Zhang Yi was very pleased with the service. Now only one last batch of supplies was about to arrive, several trucks of drinking water. One of the delivery drivers was his Uncle Yu, who lived in his neighborhood. He seemed curious as to why his nephew ordered so many gallons of drinking water. In his past life, Uncle Yu was one of the few good people to Zhang Yi, so he whispered to his uncle, "The weather this year is going to be very cold. You should stock up on supplies to prepare as soon as possible." Hearing this, Uncle Yu didn't want to believe it, but upon seeing Zhang Yi's serious face, he couldn't help but take it seriously. "Get back to work, you lazy bum." The final moment arrived. Zhang Yi, at his job where he is the stock supervisor, made tea and invited all his colleagues for a drink. After they drank, an hour later, they all passed out. After turning off the surveillance cameras, it was his time to calmly steal all the resources from the Walmart warehouse: fuel, food, and equipment. He quickly emptied the warehouse. One of the boxes caught his attention: cold resistance equipment recently purchased by the company that could withstand temperatures of -100 degrees Celsius. To complete his perfect plan, Zhang Yi also took a special sleeping tea and joined his colleagues. 2 hours later, he was awakened by an employee saying they were screwed. The warehouse had been robbed, and everything was gone. Upon hearing this, he pretended to be surprised, asking how all the warehouse products disappeared. The manager called him, asking about the warehouse supplies theft. Knowing that the entire warehouse was emptied at once without leaving any clues, and even the cameras didn't see anything. The manager immediately accused the supervisor of planning this crime with more people. Zhang Yi, nervously smiling, said he wasn't competent enough for that. Everyone was taken to the police station to give statements, but nothing was found. How could they discover that the warehouse had been teleported? After the interrogation, the police officer said not to leave the city under any circumstances, as everyone was a suspect. Maliciously, Zhang Yi said he wouldn't even leave the house. This incident on December 10th made news in the city. No one could believe that tons of supplies had disappeared without a trace. In less than 3 hours later, on this day, heavy snowfall began. Zhang Yi knew this was the beginning of the cold apocalypse. 3 days later, at home, the shockwave from a supernova explosion brought catastrophe to the entire planet. The temperature started dropping rapidly overnight. Looking at the heavy snow through the window, Zhang Yi remarked that this time, the story would be different. After a good sleep, Zhang Yi was awakened by the noise of his phone. It was a call from Fang Yuqing, asking if he knew about the temperature drop. She complained that he had stocked up on supplies every day in the last few months and questioned why he didn't inform her, who liked him so much, that she was now freezing cold and eating instant noodles. Hearing this, Zhang Yi laughed and hung up the phone on her. The irate girl then shamelessly sent a text asking for food. Reading the message, Zhang Yi decided to troll her a bit. He sent her a photo of a steak with wine, which she immediately recognized as top-quality Wagyu and very expensive French wine. The urge to have some became strong, and she asked if she could join him for the meal and wine. Zhang Yi's response was that if she wanted it, she could go to the market and buy it herself. Despite her anger, she calmed down because she needed to please Zhang Yi to be able to visit him. After that, he simply ignored her and went back to enjoying his meal. It was then that, on the building's surveillance cameras on his iPad screen, he saw Aunt Lin, the building manager, telling everyone not to panic or fight over food. She assured them that the extreme weather would last at most 2 or 3 days, and the neighborhood committee would help everyone through it. Aunt Lin warned that excessive hoarding of supplies was prohibited and would be reported to the authorities if discovered. However, one person spoke out against this, questioning how she could be sure that the heavy snowfall wouldn't last long. The surrounding residents also wanted to know, stating that if they didn't stock up on supplies now, Aunt Lin would be responsible if they ran out of food. Aunt Lin then stated that the neighborhood committee would take responsibility for this issue and pointed to Zhang Yi to divert attention, just to tell him not to cause trouble. He didn't care about the threats and went back to his super safe house. A week passed, and the snow outside kept falling. Aunt Lin asked the building group for Zhang Yi, who was young, to clear the snow from the building's door. He said it was useless to clear it because it would be like trying to dry a river with a bucket. By refusing Aunt Lin's request, Zhang Yi suggested she ask the rich people in the neighborhood for help. She was furious and clearly just trying to pick a fight. Angrily, she said that on behalf of the neighborhood committee, this was an order, and whoever opposed it would be blamed by the committee for the problems. Questioning why Aunt Lin didn't call the rich people in the neighborhood to do the heavy lifting, he proposed that Aunt Lin ask Chun Jiang, a construction boss who has employees for that, and Xing Song, a rich guy who can afford to pay if he doesn't want to help like everyone else. The authority of Aunt Lin in the group was shattered. Upon reading the messages and seeing Aunt Lin cursing, she decided to call both members of the group to clean the snow together, tagging them in the chat. Upon seeing the message, Chun Jiang immediately got angry with Aunt Lin and with Zhang Yi for acting as if he owned the place. Xing Song sent an audio message to the group saying he was busy working hard and sent a photo to show how busy he was. Aunt Lin was furious with the rich guy's response but didn't question anything further. She just accused Zhang Yi of causing the confusion. Zhang Yi didn't bother and ignored the rest. Aunt Lin was so furious that she called Zhang Yi personally to complain. He threatened her that if she kept talking nonsense and bothering him, he would kill her. Trembling with fear, she hung up and didn't say anything else in the group. While he was eating, a loud noise came from the front door, and Chun Jiang shouted from outside, "You were acting all high and mighty in the chat, putting others against me. I'm going to kill you now, punk." Zhang Yi grabbed his bow and went to the door. As Chun Jiang was kicking, Zhang Yi, aiming through the door opening, asked who would kill whom first. He hit Chun Jiang's shin with an arrow through the peephole. He saw the arrogant guy on the floor, groaning in pain nonstop. No one would imagine that a silly and naive boy, an honest person, would have the courage to react like this. Chun Jiang didn't know that this was just the beginning of Zhang Yi's revenge. With the cold temperature, Chun Jiang could die if not treated in time. He would slowly succumb to infection and weakness from the cold. Struggling to reach the elevator, He couldn't believe that this kid, whom he had seen only 3 times in his life, would do this to him. The truth is that Zhang Yi wanted to kill him outright. Realizing this, Chen Zhang got scared, grabbed the phone, and called for an emergency. However, due to the snow, any assistance was impossible. So, he treated himself, taking advantage of the cold and numb leg to remove the arrow himself. He then picked up the phone again to threaten Zhang Yi in the owner's group, telling him to watch his words. Chen Zhang will kill you fearlessly, he warned. Zhang Yi responded confidently, come here again, and I'll kill you. This conversation left the curious members of the chat group horrified. After all, no one in the region would have the courage to go against Chen Yang. This was the first time someone directly confronted him. Furious, Chen Zhang grabbed the phone and called all his employees. Soon, a group of people, each holding their own weapon, arrived at his house. Baldy led them all to Zhang Yi's door. Zhang Yi, you offended our big bro. Today is your day of death. Attacking the door, which was supposed to be made of wood, his sword broke, and he was thrown spinning away. Scared, Baldy realized, this door is made of pure metal. How many enemies does this kid have? His house is more protected than a bank. Watching the security cameras, Zhang Yi saw that they seemed weak and must be hungry. The group outside, angrier and angrier, was met with a new idea from Zhang Yi. He grabbed a water hose and turned it on from the kitchen tap. The workers outside saw the door opening but did not understand the danger since it wasn't an arrow. The hose sprayed cold water on all of them, causing many to fall to the frozen ground, with only a few managing to escape. This scene left Zhang Yi quite satisfied. In the freezing cold, cold water proved to be more dangerous than weapons.